Hey, y'all, welcome back to the State of Recruiting podcast, the third edition since we brought back the show on the Horns 24/7 Sports Network podcast station. Today, we are going to, I guess we're less than a month away from the early signing period now, National Signing Day, if you will. That's what it's called. That's what it is. Certainly as we get closer, it's going to get a little bit more heated. We're seeing visits get set up. We're seeing crazy social media posts, confusion, misdirection, gamesmanship. It's all of it. And then right after that, we get transfer portal. So it's a wild time. Texas is not exempt from that, and they saw positions of need to fill in this 2026 class. Not a lot. The class is mostly filled up. Number I think 6 at the last check in the 24/7 Sports team composite rankings. But yeah, so Texas has 2 more home games left. We're going to break down kind of the positions we think they're still looking to fill. Guys that have visits set may set visits, and then maybe some guys that, like we talked about last week, that are committed that might be looking to visit other places as well. So I know Jordan, you were going to talk about the offensive line and kind of where they're at right now.
Yeah, main guy to know on the offensive line, Bryson Martinez. He's at East Ascension High School in Gonzales, Louisiana. Just about 30-40 minutes southeast of Tiger Stadium and the LSU campus down there, kind of in the Baton Rouge area. And, pretty much same zip code, same area that former Texas D lineman Jamon Tapp came from, though he went to a different high school. Main thing to know about him, a pure offensive tackle. And, probably a better right tackle than left tackle at the next level, but can play left. Super intriguing prospect. This is a kid that has scored like 4 or 5 touchdowns this year for his high school team. They hand the ball off to him. They run him in Wildcat. They have him line up at tight end. He'll be split out wide as a receiver. And is, an athletic 6'6", 6'6.5", 300-pounder. He's raw, not going to be a year 1 player regardless of where he ends up, but by year 2 should be good to go and ready to start. He checks all the boxes, has all the tools. As far as the recruitment goes, he's committed to LSU, been committed to the hometown Tigers going back to February. Texas offered him in May of last year, or I believe it was May of last year, sometime during last year's spring evaluation period, and what would have been spring of his sophomore year, spring of his sophomore year, sorry. And Kyle Flood offered him in person after seeing him work out at his school's practice. So they've been fans of him for a long time, just, like a lot of in-state Louisiana kids. Very hard to get them to campus before they eventually end up committing to LSU like he did. And no one really finished second. It was kind of LSU over the field. And like, most in-state Louisiana recruitments are. Texas recently got him to campus for the Vanderbilt game. And are expected to get him back to campus for an official visit, either the Arkansas or Texas A&M game weekend. His playoff schedule could impact, which one it is, especially with the Arkansas game being a Saturday game and, Texas A&M being played the day after Thanksgiving on Black Friday. 2 other offensive line names we want to hit on. Micah Smith out of Vero Beach. This is a prospect Texas recently offered just a few weeks ago. Has an IOL projection, would be a guard in the NFL, but could play tackle in college. Texas, they like him a lot, but unfortunately, they are not going to have a realistic shot at pulling off a flip until he shows up to campus. We've heard nothing, leading to believe us that he will show up to campus. Currently committed to UCLA, but has taken in-season official visits to Ohio State and Tennessee. Ohio State is all the buzz right now. He's expected to, flip to the Buckeyes ahead of signing day. And then the last O-line name I want to hit on, Max Wright out of Melissa, 3-star offensive tackle commit for the Longhorns. Recently unofficially visited He unofficially visited SMU for their big win over Miami instead of making it to the Texas Vanderbilt game 4 more hours down the road with, same kickoff time at 11 a.m. Was scheduled to be back in Austin for the Texas-Arkansas game, but he's changed his plans. He's now coming in town for the Texas A&M game, and instead will be officially visiting SMU the November 22nd weekend. I'm not sure who they play that day, but, it's an official visit to the hometown school. I think it's pretty notable. From the jump when Max Wright committed, he said, my recruitment's over. It's done. I'm going to Texas. I've committed here. I'm signing here. And I mean, he's been so locked in to the point where several schools have stopped by Melissa since the commitment, and I've tried to offer him or talk to him, and he says, I don't want to meet with you, or he doesn't even post the offers. Like, he has 5 offers he's never posted because that's how committed he was to Texas. So, like, you can't ignore the SMU visit at all. This is a playoff team last year. They could very well go to the playoffs this year. And I mean, their win over Miami is their biggest home win in decades. Obviously, could be biggest, win for the program in general in decades too. So that's something we're watching. I'm not really expecting to flip at this point. It is kind of a thing with me where I think if Kyle Flood is still in Austin come signing day, that Max Wright is there. Texas O-line has been playing better as of late, but, they obviously misevaluated the roster, the room, and Texas has suffered for it. They lost the Florida game because of it. You could say maybe the Ohio State game they lost because of it. And, I mean, it's made life harder for the rest of the offense. So the main thing I'm watching with Max Wright, as long as Kyle Flood has a job, I think he signs. If Kyle Flood gets, fired ahead of signing day, that might be different. But right now, slightly like the chances of Texas holding on to him more than I like the chances of him going to SMU. And I mean, that Texas A&M visit's going to be big. He's visited Texas a bunch over the years, but he has not been to a true home game this year. The only Texas game he's seen this year was at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, and obviously, we know how that turned out. But he hasn't been to Austin since his official visit in June. So it's really big news that he makes that trip and, leaves University Park uncommitted after that SMU OV. So, or I should say still committed to Texas, not uncommitted. So yeah, that's what I got on the O-line. Texas still has some more needs, some holes to potentially fill on the D-line. And, they have 4 commitments, might be losing one soon. We're not sure. Tell us about Dylan Berriman and the rest of Texas D-line recruiting.
Yeah, speaking of commitments, kind of, I guess not. I wouldn't call Max Wright head scratching that he says an SMU visit a little bit, but at the same time, we like you just mentioned. I mean, is he kind of just keeping backup options for if there's some personnel changes on the Texas staff and he looks elsewhere? But
And
Dylan Berryman,
sorry, you reminded me of something.
Yeah,
Wanted
no,
to
go ahead.
mention Max Wright. This is gonna sound crazy. SMU has recruited the offensive tackle position better than Texas has the last 2-3 cycles. Like, that is a fact.
Yeah.
They also have a top 247 offensive tackle committed in this year's class. Wright, I believe, would be kind of the bookend guy on the other side. They signed Jermod Odoms last year, who's a 5-star offensive lineman. Like, the path to playing time might actually be quicker at Texas than it is at SMU, which I think is something that is very important to discuss and remember, when you talk about him flipping or staying at Texas. But back to Dylan Berriman, just wanted to mention that quick.
No, it's interesting. And as we're recording this on Wednesday, and you'll be listening to it on Thursday, but Tuesday night, not to confuse everybody on days of the week, kind of during the second half of the Texas Duke game, a little Twitter buzz, a little Twitter dinging happened. Dylan Berryman, and it's a since deleted tweet, but essentially said, and I don't have it pulled up right in front of me, but thank you, Coach Sarkisian, Texas football, but I'll be opening things back up. So I think anybody that follows recruiting, you take that as a decommitment. So some reports went out, but he deleted the tweet. So that's the problem. Like, this is where we're at. So I reached out to Dylan Berryman, and for people not wondering who is Dylan Berryman, he's the 4-star defensive lineman committed to Texas from Monroe, Louisiana. I believe he was the first of the 4 first of the defensive line commitments to
He
pop
was.
in the month of June. Yeah, and he's a guy that we've known about for a while. He was recruited by Texas, with Bo Davis, and then came back and Kenny Baker kind of really took him under his wing, and it was a Texas LSU thing. Then when he committed to Texas in June, it was a Texas Purdue battle. And now, in the last few months, we've seen Ole Miss really come on heavy to try to flip him. They got him on campus in 2 weeks in September. He took a Texas visit in between that, but back at Oxford again the next weekend. So he's been a guy I think we've even mentioned, like, maybe a commit of concern where he's listening to other schools, maybe getting a better offer from another school. School's turning up the heat, and so that it wouldn't be a shock to see him decommit. So last night's news wasn't really shocked, but when he deletes the tweet, then you're kind of like, well, what's going on? I reached out to Dylan Berryman. He said, no, I'm not decommitted. Or said no. I said, hey, did you decommit from Texas? He said no! Exclamation point. And so We'll certainly we're reaching out to try to get some more context of what he meant with the tweet. But then I think you sent me something. He after he retweeted Lamar Brown on something. What was the retweet he did?
Yeah. So whenever Brian Kelly got fired, Lamar Brown is like the only LSU commit that tweeted anything about Brian Kelly. He basically just thanked him and said, thank you for being the first to believe in me. People didn't know what he was talking about. So an hour later, Lamar Brown tweeted, and this is like a week ago. The tweet came out October 27th from Lamar Brown. And he said, to clear up confusion on my last post, LSU is my very first offer. Dylan Behrman tweeted that last night. LSU was also Dylan Behrman's first offer. So they're definitely the school I'm watching, along with Ole Miss, Texas Tech, Purdue. I think they're in it too. I know Purdue definitely is. I think Tech is trying to be kind of covert. But it's very interesting. I mean, Dylan Behrman is a kid who gave quotes to an LSU site in like March or April. He put out a top 6 that did not have LSU in it as an in-state Louisiana kid that LSU very much wanted.
Yeah.
And so this LSU site hits him up and he says, I'm blessed. I'm a kid who grew up in Louisiana wanting to play at LSU, but now that I've seen other campuses, I've seen other states, I've gotten to travel. I want to leave the state of Louisiana. I want to go far from home and create a path somewhere else. And him retweeting this tweet from Lamar Brown last night is interesting. We mentioned it last week. LSU recruiting is probably, going to benefit from this loss of Brian Kelly. Whoever the next head coach is, I struggle to believe the LSU assistant recruiting personnel staff is going to have to recruit around him like they did Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
Was Dylan Behrman really just not interested in playing for Brian Kelly, or did he want to go out of state?
Yeah.
Might be finding out soon.
Yeah.
So that was the Lamar Brown tweet.
Yeah. And so that's one thing, like as you cover recruiting long enough or follow it long enough, there's like trends you can see coming without, like, you don't need to, there's just set trends. And one of them is like in-state Louisiana kids that LSU wants more often than not go to LSU. And there's exceptions here and there. Like I covered Bama, like Nick Saban kind of did whatever he wanted in the state of Louisiana. That was kind of an exception. It was Nick Saban. Guys like Devontae Smith, Dylan Moses back in the day. I mean, those guys were heavy LSU targets. Alabama went and got them. But more often than not, unless Nick Saban's recruiting against you, like top Louisiana guys are going to stay in Louisiana, go to LSU. Another example, state of Mississippi kids, like top Mississippi kids, whether they commit elsewhere, during the cycle, it usually comes down to Ole Miss and Mississippi State making it the most interesting towards the end. Even, what was the kid last year that signed, I think, with Mississippi State or Ole Miss, and then like 2 hours later changed his mind and signed with like the Egg Bowl runs deep in Mississippi. So there's things like that. So we'll certainly be watching Dylan Behrman. I'm not saying he's like, oh, he said he's not decommitted. That doesn't mean like something's not going on. So we're certainly watching that, and he'll be a defensive lineman that we're noting. And then the rest of the defensive linemen, I think Texas probably benefited from Hugh Freeze getting fired at Auburn with Corey Wells. Maybe that kind of creates some issues there with him thinking about flipping. I think he was pretty solid as it was, but that helps. Bodney Cleveland's taking some visits. He seems really happy with Texas. And I should add back to Max Wright. I talked to him this morning. He said he's still very solid with Texas. I should have added that when we were talking about that. But again, you have to watch the visit. And then James Johnson, who maybe probably not having the best of senior seasons, but Miami still seems like the school to watch there if they make a big money push to change his mind and keep him home on the defensive line. But beyond the guys committed, we mentioned Berryman, but there's 2 other guys that are not Texas commits that we're still keeping an eye on down the stretch. One of them, Richard Anderson, he's another LSU commit. Again, Brian Kelly leaving, does that help LSU in the end? We still have to wait to see who they hire, who the defensive line coach is, the guys they bring in. It might be a boost to LSU hanging on to him. But Richard Anderson, a guy that Texas is still working on that interior defensive line, 6'3", 340 pounds, like an interior defensive lineman you want on your team. And Texas is kind of testing the water there after the Brian Kelly news. He's teammates with Hayward Howard Jr., the cornerback committed to Texas. So, he has an in-house recruiter there. Hayward Howard visited LSU too. So, we'll see what happens with that. But he's been solid with Texas for the most part. I think he's happy with Texas, the direction they're going. But Richard Anderson, we're waiting to see if he sets an official visit for the Arkansas game or the A&M game, if at all. But that's an interior defensive lineman they're looking at. And then,
Hey,
yeah, go ahead.
do you know Richard Anderson's nickname?
Is it podcast appropriate? I don't know. Like,
Yeah, it's podcast
you know, the
appropriate.
nickname for Richard.
Well, yeah, I wasn't going there. It's
Okay.
Big Rich.
Okay.
He'll be Big Rich if he ends up at Texas at this point. Like
Yes.
he's a borderline 5-star. This kid is probably going to make north of 800K next year. I would easily, predict that.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, has never visited Texas, so whether it's an unofficial or an official, it's going to be big news.
Is that the same deal with Martinez? Like both of them are just one official visits to LSU and commit to LSU.
Yeah,
that
was it. And hey, Hayward Howard's going to be in town for the Arkansas game. That's an unofficial. Does Big Rich maybe hitch a ride with the Howard family? We'll see.
Does Big Rich hitch rides, or does he take the private jet?
That is a good point. He is Big Rich. I don't know. I mean, what a nickname. It's also like, I wish we had photos to pull up of this. If you're listening or are watching this, just Google Richard Anderson and look at the photos of him. Like,
eventually,
there are very few humans that are put together like he is. He's a rare body type, rare athlete for the size. Love the nickname and phenomenal prospect. Like, this is a guaranteed NFL draft pick as long as he shows up to practice every day and stays healthy and works hard. He's a guaranteed NFL draft pick.
I was laughing the other day at the Vanderbilt game because you always kind of keep your eye open to see if there's surprise visitors, guys that weren't on the original list that pop in. And I think I was texting you, Jordan, and I was like, you were like, you'll know it's Richard Anderson if you see Richard Anderson. And so I didn't see him, but no, it's funny. But last but not least, moving past Richard Anderson, Kendall Gerville. And we'll see. I say all this like these are just the set guys they're looking at. Like, Texas is on a bye week this week. There could be a guy they go out and see this weekend that they're like, oh, let's make a move on this kid. Like, for example, you know about him, but Keith Doty, the SMU commit, that was a guy they were trying to get in on a visit in the month of September. They're still testing the water there, trying to see how he feels. But the main guys, we're focusing on Kendall Gerville, Florida commit. Same situation. Oh, not same situation, but similar. Obviously, head coach fired at Florida. He was a guy that was like on the verge of committing to Texas in June. Florida came in, changed that. I think we can see how that all kind of unfolded. Since then, Billy Napier's been fired. Kind of some unknown in Gainesville. Obviously, again, you have to see who they hire, who they bring in. Maybe that's a plus. Maybe it helps them hang on to him. But I reached out to a source close to Gerville after Napier got fired, and they had a no comment on kind of where he stood with Florida. So, that doesn't give you like the warm and fuzzies about, him sticking with the Gators. But that's a guy Texas has stayed in contact with. We were told they do want to get out for a visit. So only 2 more chances. And I think you and I mentioned this week, like, Texas should bring in kids this weekend to get some more one-on-one time with them. They don't necessarily need the game atmosphere. They can go, hang out in the stadium and, turn on the lights for them, do all that. But maybe we don't have any expectation of Texas doing that. But, maybe that's something they look at down the road for in-season official visits. But that's kind of where they're at on defensive line. They want to hang on to the guys they have. That'd be a heck of a class if they did. But you also, that's a class you really can't get too many of at a premium position like that, certainly in SEC play. So, but beyond that, I think you were going to talk about the defensive back position or the edge recruiting, or what were we going next?
2027 quarterback recruiting.
Okay, pivot.
So they've offered 3 kids. Brady Edmonds, who's an Ohio State commit, he's not flipping. Peyton Houston, an LSU commit, was actually silently committed to OU, and LSU kind of pulled the rug out from underneath Oklahoma. They still need a quarterback, by the way, but with Peyton Houston, Texas was not really pushing that hard. With how Peyton Houston was recruited by other schools and with how Texas recruited him, I think if they wanted Peyton Houston to be the 2027 quarterback, he would be right now. I might be wrong on that, but from everything I've heard, I've seen Texas's actions, I think that is the case. And I don't really expect them to circle back to him. And also, like, maybe down the road, LSU, the current staff, still wants 2 quarterbacks. They never signed a 2025 QB. They still don't have one in 2026, and they'd like a 2-quarterback class. They're still recruiting Colton Nussmeier, younger brother of Garrett Nussmeier, and Elijah Haven, the 5-star who's from Baton Rouge. But, like, is Peyton Houston really going to be cool with being in a 2-man quarterback class with Nussmeier or Haven? And on the flip side, would they be cool with being in a 2-quarterback class with Houston? We don't know. But kind of doubtful that LSU signs 2 top 100 quarterback prospects. I just struggle to see that really ever happening again. And then Kavian Bryant, that's the 3rd QB prospect they've offered, just committed to Texas Tech on Saturday. Texas finished 2nd. NIL, faster path to playing time. Playing basketball and football is what won it for the Red Raiders. So Texas, they need to figure it out. Each year of the Sark era, he would like to sign a quarterback. You're always going to struggle to recruit a difference maker, a top prospect at the position the year after you sign a 5-star. That is why Texas, ended up with Trey Owens, the lone 3-star QB of the Sark era. Year after they land Arch Manning. And then year after they land Diabell, they go 0 for 3 on the guys they've offered. They have to look around. That's what Ty Knutson is. Ty Knutson out of Smithson Valley. First year as a full-time starter. Last year, they kind of had a 2-quarterback system. The Rangers did. It was Knutson as a sophomore, and then Cade Spradling, a senior. Kind of a Haynes King style, just super gritty, far from pretty, but he gets it done. And he's now a true freshman quarterback at Air Force. So that's who he split snaps with. Now he's the guy. It's all on him. He's QB1. And while Smithson Valley does unfortunately not upload stats to Max Preps, they are 8-1, and if they win tonight, which they likely will, they're playing like 1-8 Victoria East team. They will win district for however many years in a row they've won district. Knutson was on campus for the Texas Vanderbilt game. First ever visit to Texas for him. Second visit of the season for him. He was at A&M in early September, and then he'll be at Texas Tech this weekend whenever they host BYU. AJ Milwee and Jackson Gleason, who is essentially the player personnel director in charge of the offensive side of the ball, offensive scouting, evaluating, recruiting. That's what he does. So he hung with him a lot, and then he also met with AJ Milwee a lot. They didn't tell him, anything that they're specifically wanting to see from him to, make them pull the trigger on an offer, but they did say they've been wanting to see him throw in person for a while. And they'll get to do that tomorrow, or I guess later today, since this will come out on Thursday. AJ Milwee's going to go watch him play on Thursday night when they play Victoria East at Ranger Stadium on the Smithson Valley High School campus. So could be a guy to watch on an offer. He currently has 10 offers from Houston, North Texas, Oklahoma State, TCU, A&M, Texas Tech, Tulane, UTEP, UTSA, and UTRGV. The 3 biggest schools, TCU, A&M, and Tech, all already have a 2027 quarterback committed. So should Texas offer, I imagine this would be wrapped up pretty quickly. And yeah, that's the latest on it. There's also some other names that, I've seen player personnel staff members follow on Twitter, AJ Milwee, or, have been told they're conversating with Texas, but have not been told anyone is getting a bye-week visit from AJ Milwee this week besides Ty Knutson. And wouldn't be surprised if he tries to make it down to Florida to see one of the 2 2028 quarterbacks they've offered, or maybe, he stops by and sees Diabell, even though he's not, playing anymore this season with his injury. But that's the latest on Knutson. And, I've seen people on the board when I wrote this story, he's a 3-star. He's a low 3-star. He's an 86 3-star. He's the number 51 quarterback in the country. Why is Texas recruiting this kid? It's really hard to get, a difference maker after you sign a 5-star. Kids see Diabell. He's the number 10 player in the country. He just signed a partnership with Nike. He's clearly going to be the guy, and Texas clearly has a lot invested in him. If you're a kid, trying to have a good college career that gets you to the pros, it's probably not smart to go, to a school the year after a 5-star. Yeah. So if you're Texas, you have to be really smart and calculated. You have to take shots in your evaluations and hope it hits. The Trey Owens one has not hit this far. He was passed up by KJ Lacey, but if they offer and end up landing Ty Knutson, that is what it'll be. They're trying to hit on an evaluation, and they're taking a shot because that's what you have to do. You got to get creative to cycle after landing 5-star. So That's what I got on Nutson. But some senior evals slash risers they're looking at recently hosted Karen Maycock, the FSU linebacker commit out of Miami Central down there in South Florida. First ever visit to Texas. It was an official visit for the Texas Vanderbilt game. What's the latest on Mr. Maycock?
Yeah. And before I jump into Texas's chances there, I'm going to pause for a quick break, but we're going to keep going on YouTube. Um, and just to correct you, Karan Maycock. So
Oh,
I believe, based off me asking him how he pronounces his name. Um, so yeah, he visited for the Vanderbilt game this past weekend. Was the lone official visitor. So kind of watching everything going on. He was down there on the field. His whole family. Texas staff had him on the field during warmups and letting him watch everything. He was sitting front row in the recruit section. He had Diabell right behind him, so they're both those guys are from South Florida. So Diabell's talking to him and giving him the lay of the land. I think there's a video one reporter put out. I think the CBS team put out of Sark walking into the stadium, high fiving him and him and Dia standing together. So visit went well. I spoke to him. I think it was on Monday when I talked to him. So he had a really good time. Said he liked watching the players fly around, watching the defense do their thing. But at the end of the day, everyone's like, what is he going to flip from Florida State? Like, what's going on? And I don't think there's a clear answer just yet. Texas. You bring him on an official visit late in the season. You feel you would imagine he's a top target for Texas. I'm not sure if that's like necessarily the case. I think if it was, probably would have flipped coming out of the weekend. Not to say he won't be, but I think Texas is still kind of looking at the guys out there. You got Tyler Atkinson committed. You got Kosi Okpala committed. Atkinson's a guy that's going to play year one most likely. Okpala probably going to take a little bit of time to season. So, maybe this is a bye week that they look to go out and see who's still out there and maybe other guys they want to push, or just wait until the portal. But again, this is a class you got kind of got to up your numbers at the linebacker position. So Maycock's still certainly a guy in the mix. I asked him, where do things stand with Florida State? He said he's still committed to Florida State and still has a great relationship with Florida State. We're sitting here November 5th. In a month from now, is Mike Norvell going to be the head coach of Florida State, though? That's the question. And again, then who do they hire? Does that help? Does that hurt? But I said, if Mike Norvell is not the head coach there, what does that do? And he said, I would still be committed to the program. So, kid that really likes Florida State. Props to him for looking at more than just the coaching situation, I guess. But we'll see. He told me it's a Florida State Texas race. So we're going to keep tabs on him. I'm not sure how heavy of a press is being made right now. I could be misreading it. But certainly the one linebacker of note that we're watching right now on the defensive side of the ball. And I know the other one in the secondary, Trey Davis, you had some thoughts on him too.
Yeah. Interesting from Maycock on Norvell's job and being committed to the program. Because I heard from someone the other day, a source, that they believe it's a 99% chance Mike Norvell comes back. They do not want to pay his buyout. Florida State doesn't.
Okay.
But I don't know about that. The Seminoles, they're currently 4-4. Their remaining 4 games, they're going on the road to Clemson this weekend. Then they have Virginia Tech in Tallahassee. Then they're on the road at North Carolina State. And then on the road at Florida. I mean, Barf, what a letdown that game is going to be.
Seriously.
And I mean, again, we put it past Mike Norvell to go 0-4 and finish 4-8. No, we can't. This is a guy who went 2-10 last year. And if they go 0-4, I think Florida State will pay the buyout. Like, yes, it's $50 million. Yes, it's expensive, but you're lying to yourself if you don't think Florida State has the funds and alumni and money to put together to pay him $50-something million to buy him out. If you don't do it now, you're doing it next year or the year after that. There's no way Mike Norvell reaches the end of his contract at Florida State. Just fire him already. So, yeah.
And just real quick thought on that. The fact that less than 2 years ago, there's buzz that he was Greg Burns' first choice to replace Nick Saban. I don't know how true that is. People thought that, and then Kalen DeBoer was second to that. It's always the first choice, the guy you hired. So who knows? Obviously, Kalen DeBoer seems to be working out at Alabama, but like how fast things can change up on you from maybe being the replacement to Nick Saban to are they going to pay you $50 million to leave Florida State? So just kind of wild. Very
Yeah,
wild, not kind of wild.
yeah. Hey, does NCAA gambling stuff? If I'm Norvell, I'd throw some games to get me some $50 million quicker. Can we put it past it? I mean, I'm joking.
I mean, it's a lot. It's a lottery ticket to. I was talking to some of the guys at the media availability today. It's like, it's a win-win as a head coach to get fired. I mean, obviously, you don't want to lose your job, but kind of set for life.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a job in the entire world that incentivizes you to get fired, you know, without cause more than college football head coaching.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy how it's structured there. That's what happens when agents like Jimmy Sexton pretty much monopolize the market and they rep everyone big worth a damn.
Yep.
So yeah. All right, we talked about Dylan Behrman and the fun he had on Twitter on Tuesday night. And talk about another kid who kind of had fun on Twitter in a similar way. Teray Davis. He is still committed to UCLA. The entire world, including myself, thought he decommitted. Why is that? Well, like 3 days after Deshaun Foster got fired from UCLA, he tweeted his recruitment was open and his options are open. Well, that is apparently not the case. His recruitment is open, but he is still committed to UCLA. What a world we live in, right? Brandon Huffman, our national analyst on the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, was in Boulder. That's where Teray Davis is from, Boulder, Colorado. And Davis said, quote, "I'm still committed to UCLA. It was just with all the uncertainty, I had to keep my options open, so I opened that up, but I'm still committed to UCLA. I want to see who they hire, see what he's like, and have a conversation with him. I will probably take another official visit out there after the new coach is hired." So the school's currently in it, UCLA. He's, obviously, I guess, committed there, softly committed there, I should say. He's OV to Washington and Wisconsin. Had an OV scheduled for Texas for the Vanderbilt game, but they ended up pushing that back. He's now either going to make it for an official visit, either whenever Texas plays Arkansas or the Texas A&M game. It'll be one of those two games, and it'll depend on his playoff schedule in high school football. And then the two other schools they're hoping to schedule OVs to, besides Texas and UCLA after they make a new hire, is Arizona State and Indiana. It's going to be pretty interesting to see how long he waits, because I don't know if he's going to graduate high school next month like most kids do nowadays. And, I mean, UCLA was dumb enough to hire Deshaun Foster at the time they did in like the middle of the spring. You can't put it past them to be stupid enough to not have a head coach hired before signing day. So timing could really matter a lot with Teray Davis, and I'll try to find out if he's going to graduate next month or in May by next episode. So that's the latest with Davis. Again, look for him to make it to Austin for an OV, either the Arkansas or Texas A&M game weekend. Another dynamic athlete, arguably the number one athlete in the country. It's either him or Jermaine Bishop. Jalen Lott, Longhorn legacy. Anything on him?
Yeah. Nothing crazy of note. Outside of the fact that I think if Texas is going to add another wide receiver in the 2026 class from the high school level, I think Jalen Lott's the only guy that could be that addition. Sorry, I made that like a lot more confusing than it needed to be. But I think Jalen Lott's kind of the last high school guy Texas is really looking at to try to add at the wide receiver position, unless someone crazy blows up in the next 3 weeks. I mean, that makes the most sense. He's committed to Oregon. Seems pretty happy. I think everyone knows distance is not a thing with the Lott family. They have siblings playing in other states.
Yep.
You live in DFW, you can travel pretty easily to get to places.
His
But
sister, women's
yeah.
basketball at USC. Or
Yep.
no, sorry. His sister is women's basketball at UNLV. His
UNLV
other
and then
sister
track.
runs track at
Yeah.
USC.
Yeah. So, I think, you're easy, something you could say is oh, well, as you get closer to signing day, that distance to Eugene is pretty far. It's well, not really when you live next to one of the biggest airports in the world and you can get there pretty easily. But and also Oregon's giving him a lot of money as well, which helps. So, Jalen Lott's the one guy to watch. I don't think he's going to flip, but he's a Texas legacy. I think I think we know where probably his parents want him to play. They want to see their son kind of follow in their footsteps. Both his parents played sports Texas, and so we'll see. Crazier things have happened, but he's the one guy to watch. I don't know if he's going to return for the Arkansas or A&M game. He hasn't said anything. He was pretty secretive about going to, I think it was the Sam Houston game with his parents, or whatever. He said he was alongside his parents for kind of a ceremony thing they were attending. So, he's not going to publicize it much, I think, if he does visit late. But the one guy to watch, I think I say this because, we're talking about LSU commits and guys Texas could circle back on. Jabari Mack was a guy that Texas really, really liked. In the summer, he committed to LSU. Blazing fast wide receiver out of Destrehan, same school as Justin Jefferson. I don't think Texas is going to be in the mix there down the stretch. I think Jalen Lott's the guy to watch, and Texas, as we've seen them come along in the passing game, come along more, and Emmett Mosley get into the fold and start to show what he brings to the table. Like Texas is set up really good at wide receiver next season.
The
I don't think
entire
people are,
room could come back.
yeah, I don't think people are taking that into account. I think early in the season when the passing game was kind of meh, it's like, oh, are these guys going to transfer? Like, what are they going to do? But like, your top four guys are all, they're not NFL. I mean, DeAndre Moore could, yes, technically declare for the draft. I don't think he's had the year enough to where that would help him. I think he probably needs one more year.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree with that. And then, you got the young talent up and coming too. I know people want to see Khalil Lockett more. We saw him a little bit on the Hail Mary attempts by Arch Manning the other day. Arch Manning just threw it into the stands almost on two different attempts.
It is. I don't care. He's a true freshman. I don't care the argument who you're going to take off the field. Khalil Lockett should be playing 5 to 10 snaps a game. Like,
Yeah.
he should not only be getting in on these BS end of half plays, or only because Ryan Wingo and Dalen McCutcheon left the game for an injury. Like, again, I get it. I'm not saying he should start. I'm not saying he should be playing a ton, but get him 5 to 10 snaps. This isn't a 4-year or 5-year player. It's a 3-year guy. And I mean, like, you have to do things like that. If the entire room comes back next year, there's no way in hell Khalil Lockett's only playing 30 snaps next year like he has this year. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So they have to figure that part out. And also, like, I mean, I'm just going to call it what it is. If the whole room comes back and you're adding Chris Stewart, Cohen Brown, and Jermaine Bishop, they're pushing at least someone out, or someone's going to leave by themselves. That's just, it's simple math. It's how it works. So,
yeah, it is what it is in this era. But I mean, that's kind of, I think, what excited Texas about bringing in Mosley this past cycle from Stanford, because he's a kid that has multiple years of eligibility. You're not having to go to the portal and add a kind of a one-year wonder type guy like you wanted with Isaiah Bond, you got with Matthew Golden, or the year prior with A.D. Mitchell. So I think that's going to be taken into account as to whether they even make a big push to try to flip Jalen Lotter, or who they might look at in the portal if they want to add another playmaker, and that'll obviously be dictated by if someone leaves as well, or multiple guys leave out of the room, because they did put a big investment into this young wide receiver room, like Jamie French, Khalil Lockett, Michael Terry, who's now obviously at running back. We'll see if that sticks. Jalen McCutcheon's been the guy that's kind of emerged as the under the radar guy in that class that now plays more than any of those guys. So it's been kind of a weird year, but yeah, wide receiver pretty nicely set up for Texas as it is now, with the guys they have committed, guys they have potentially coming back. And people are going to kind of try to entice guys to leave Texas this offseason, but we'll see if they hang on to them. So that's where we're at with wide receiver recruiting, and I'm just going to touch on edge recruiting real quick, because that's still a spot they want to add one more guy. Like you mentioned last week, they still need that kind of Colin Simmons speed rusher type on this defense to complement Richie Wesley on the opposite side. The two guys were, one guy we're now watching, we didn't mention last week because he kind of just surprised. I mean, I was talking to Jordan on Saturday, and I was like, hey, I think I see Jamarian Carlton on the field. And Jordan, sure enough, he's Instagramming down there. So Jamarian Carlton, for those unaware, Baylor commit, borderline 5-star, big Texas target back in the summer, picked Baylor. I know you can go into a lot more detail on him, but he was on campus, and he's kind of gone underground. He's not saying much. I saw a report, I think, from Sikkim 365 that said he's locked in with Baylor. I've talked to sources on Jamarian Carlton saying, they feel like he's kind of confused on what he's going to end up doing. Still committed to Baylor as we sit here, midweek after he visits Texas. But like you mentioned, and not to take any talking points you have on this, he skipped a Baylor game at the same time slot to come down to see Texas play. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add on Jamarian Carlton and what you think Texas's chances could be.
Yeah, Baylor had a non-competitive game versus UCF where they won by like 4 or 5 scores, an 11 a.m. kick. The drive from Temple to Waco's like about 40 minutes. The drive from Temple to Austin's about an hour. Not that big of a difference, but, it's notable. They both were at 11 a.m. But one was Baylor UCF. The other one was, a top 20 matchup between Texas and Vanderbilt. He chose the SEC game, the Texas game. It's notable. And on last week's episode, I said I don't really expect Texas to be recruiting him or circling back. And I said that because he's currently playing through an injury that's going to require surgery, and he'll probably miss a good chunk of spring ball wherever he's at. And he's still productive. I mean, shout out to the kid for playing through injury and not giving up. Like 99% of today's kids that are borderline 5 stars or top 247 prospects, like they're trying to make business decisions, think about the future. And I mean, hey, Jamarian Carlton's still playing for that blue front, white back down in Temple. As far as the recruitment goes, Texas finished second back in the summer to Baylor. It was very close. And, Baylor, they're 5-4. Aranda, he's been there a while, hasn't won really much at all outside of the 1 year they went to the Big 12 championship. And I am told from, a source very close to that program, he's probably not getting fired unless they miss a bowl game. They're 1 win away from clinching bowl eligibility with 6 wins. And the remaining 3 games are Utah and Baylor. They're now the number 13 team in the country for whatever reason. And then they have Arizona and Tucson, and they have Houston and Waco. Like, I keep saying you can't put it past them. You cannot put it past Baylor to go 0-3 to finish. I've seen it happen before when I covered Baylor. Like, it's very possible. So, unless that happens, though, probably going to have his job back. Going to be interesting. The Baylor athletics department decision makers just love Aranda so much, the way he represents the university. And, I mean, he's obviously a really good guy, very nice guy. And they like that part. And they also would very much like to avoid trying to make a hire in this year's coaching cycle where, in most years, they're probably a top 5 best job available. And this year, they might not even be in the top 10. Like, seriously. So, that's the main thing I'm watching with Jamarian Carlton. Yes, he did a story with Sikkim 365. If you don't know, Sikkim 365 is basically the Texags of the Baylor market. They run that market. They break a lot of stuff. They have a lot of news. They're pretty much in-house with Baylor. I mean, they're literally part of their NIL operation. And he did a story with them saying his recruitment shut down. He's locked in. He's done taking visits. He's not going anywhere but Baylor. We'll see. To be honest, I don't think he has to visit Texas again for a flip to be possible. But, yeah, and one thing I think is interesting, I brought up the injury because that was told to me from someone at Texas when I asked, hey, why isn't there really anything with Jamarian Carlton here? And that's, why I said I doubt they'll look that way. So that kind of makes me think Drake Quinn, probably going to be Ohio State or Texas, Miami, Tennessee. They're also in it. But is Jamarian Carlton getting to campus to see Texas? Is that telling of where Texas thinks they are? Drake Quinn? Maybe.
Yeah, it could be. For those not familiar with Drake Quinn, a guy that, they made big inroads with last spring, kind of vaulted into the top 3 for him after an April visit. He came back in June. Looked like he was on the verge of committing to Texas. I think people at Texas probably expected him to commit to Texas, and then Clemson came in the 11th hour and were able to get him to commit in mid-June. He has since decommitted from Clemson. He actually took a against the rules visit, against Dabo's rules visit to Tennessee. And I'm not sure if they forced him out. I doubt, like, Clemson's not in any position to force kids to decommit right now. But he has decommitted from Clemson, and kind of the floodgates open of interest. Ohio State got him on campus. You mentioned Tennessee, Miami's trying to get him. But yeah, so he has told us several times in the month of October that he wants to get back to Texas for a game in November. So He looked at the schedule. He's got 2 more chances. And so we'll see if he does. But yeah, is Carlton, it's one spot, at this point that they're trying to fill in, at edge. They have Wesley. They want to get one more guy. If it's not one of these guys, do they go to the portal? But they're only really losing Burke, Trey Moore, if you want to include him there. Like, they have a pretty loaded room there as well. Still, assuming they retain this roster and guys don't go elsewhere. So we'll see on Drake Quinn. I think if he gets back to campus kind of late, right before the early signing period, that probably bodes well for Texas's chances. But you can't discount, Tennessee, Ohio State, these schools pushing for them. They're at the same level of caliber recruiting as Texas. So, but yeah, that's all we have on 2026. Again, Texas is on a bye week. There's going to be news this week. They're going to, I'm sure Sark will be out in the helicopter with Chris Gilbert. I think it was kind of the Houston area last bye week. So I would imagine DFW more a little bit, or am I doing it backwards?
Let's play a game. We're gonna try to predict stops. We'll do in-state only.
Yeah,
they have to get to Euless Trinity. If there isn't a Texas staff member that goes to Euless Trinity, it's a non-serious recruiting operation. They're behind on John Meredith. He hasn't visited since the summer. Like, A&M is in front of everyone by a mile with him right now. It was A&M and Penn State. Penn State fired James Franklin. It's all A&M right now. And Bam is also kind of in there too. And he was just at Ohio State. But again, hasn't been to Texas since the June visit. Who else in DFW makes sense? I bet they stop by North Crowley. Not only do they have John Turntine, they have like 4 other kids with Texas offers that are sophomores or juniors. I bet they make a stop in Tennessee to see Keyshawn Bowman, 5-star receiver, former Oregon commit. Chris Jackson's going pretty hard on him right now.
I want to say, I believe Sark went out to Georgia as well in that first bye week, because I think he went out to see Atkinson, and obviously Grayson, who's just like a D1 factory.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Saying, speaking of Grayson, I will be at their playoff game next week, going out to the Atlanta area for the Texas-Georgia game and getting in a day early. I'm going to go see them play. They're playing Norcross, who they beat by like 20 points in the same game last year. So should be a good one.
Yeah, maybe he'll get in on his TikTok.
I don't know about all that. Maybe I'll hold the phone for him, but that's about it. Last thing, I know we got to get out of here soon. We're running over. Gonna be in Pflugerville tomorrow/today, since it comes out on Thursday. Pflugerville Weiss is hosting Austin Anderson Thursday night at the field, aka the P Field. Trey Moore is who we're there to see, along with Yaheem Riley, the Texas safety commit. Trey Moore, father Eric Moore, played quarterback at OU in the late 90s. His mother played volleyball at Alabama, and his uncle went to Texas Southern, played receiver in the league for 4 years. And then he has one brother that's a starting 2-guard for Tulane, was at Oral Roberts, transferred into Tulane this offseason. And then his other brother is like a 3 or 4 year starter at running back for Oklahoma Baptist, which is actually one of the better D2 programs in college football. Texas and Texas A&M are the schools at the top for him. He pretty much changes his mind every day on them, and it's gone back and forth a lot. Been to several Texas games over the years and will be at either the Arkansas or A&M game. I've also been told from a source at Weiss that a Texas coach will swing by. The Texas did not tell them which coach it will be, but would assume it is Dwayne Akina, Mark Orphy. Wouldn't be shocked at Chris Gilbert either, because, they're also playing Anderson, who is Miami Riley, the Texas safety commit. Spent 3 years at Austin LBJ, transferred into Anderson this year. And the Trojans are currently 9-0. They've already clinched the district championship. But if Weiss gets a win tonight, I believe it will affect seeding for the playoffs. But both teams are already in. Should be a good one, though. A lot of these kids play 7-on-7 together with Juice. They know each other very well. And I'm very excited to see Miami Riley. I mean, I talked about it on Texas Sports Unfiltered earlier this week. Like, Miami Riley is a kid that, like, genuinely puts fear in other kids' hearts. Like, they do not want to run slants over the middle with him back there. And even in 7-on-7, like I've seen kids get scared of him. So he's a headhunter. He loves to hit stick people, decleat them, and very curious how those Weiss receivers, because they have a lot of FBS receiver prospects, are going to handle that. It's going to be kind of a pretty good evaluation for both sides, and should be a great game too. So
I didn't
follow
get
me
the
on Twitter.
luxury of, sorry to interject. I didn't get the luxury of that quality of, I saw Anderson against McNeil in the season opener in the formerly the Taco Shack, and like it was rare that a play even got to Yaheem Riley. Like it was like he didn't have the chance to like make a lot of. I mean, the game was like what 35-0 by the half, so I think you're going to get a better some better highlight opportunities.
Oh yeah, and he's played a bit of offense this year too. So if Anderson's going to win, they probably will have him playing on offense, and that'll help them get the win. Anderson's best player, not named Yaheem, is Caleb Crenshaw, senior running back. He also was at LBJ for 3 years before transferring into Anderson. His father, Shannon Crenshaw, is pretty good friends with Jamal Fenner. They kind of grew up in Austin at the same time, similar parts of Austin. And his father went to A&M and is, kind of a recruiting coordinator, really helped Andrew Makuba when he was coming up. He's helped Yaheem Riley. He takes him to a lot of visits. And his son, Caleb, actually broke Cedric Alexander's Austin ISD all-time rushing record a week or two ago. So he's produced a lot. Probably not. He has like 3 or 4 offers. The biggest ones like UTSA. Just the problem with him is he's like pretty little, probably around 5'7", 5'8", and not an elite track guy. So really productive high school player, but probably going to end up like FCS or G5, maybe SWAC, something around there. And I mean, he's a senior that's still uncommitted. So they're going to be leaning on him and Miami to power them to win over Weiss, who is absolutely loaded and I think has more FBS Power 4 prospects on their team than anyone else in Centex right now. So looking forward to it. Give me a follow on Twitter at jscruggs247. Going to have live updates, and we'll also be posting them on the Horns 24/7 flagship message board. So you can check that out too. Hank, anything else you want to end this with?
That's it. We'll be back next Thursday morning, Georgia week. So certainly we're going to probably talk some Texas-Georgia recruiting battles of present and past. And it should be a good time.
Awesome. Well, hey, everyone who tuned in, appreciate it. We'll see you next week.